Colin Turnbull was born in 1924 in Harrow, England. Turnbull joined the Navy as a young man and served until being discharged. After that, he attended Oxford University to work towards becoming an anthropologist. His advisor at Oxford wrote, "Colin Turnbull is tall, fair, handsome, impulsive, and elusive. All his screws are loose. Real communication with him seems impossible. Perhaps one has to belong to one of the backwards races in order to get his wavelength." In 1951, he took a trip with Newton Beale to the Uturi Forest region of Africa. While there, he became fixated with the Mbuti people. After this time in Africa, Turnbull traveled to Canada and worked as a miner while finishing up another degree. In 1964, he finished his education with an anthropology doctorate from Oxford. Turnbull wore many hats during his life. He was a miner, Navy seaman, curator of the African Ethnology at American Museum of Natural History, constructor of the Queen of Africa, author, anthropologist, lover, fighter, and a Buddhist monk towards the end of his life. Turnbull was an unconventional scholar who rejected neutrality. He had a love for music and for Africa. Turnbull was engaged to marry Kumari Mayer, an Indian woman, in 1957. Their relationship ended in 1959 when Turnbull met and fell in love with Joseph Plouse. In 1960, Turnbull and Joseph exchanged wedding vows, sealing a relationship that would last almost 30 years. In 1988, Colin wrote to several of his friends saying, "I am sure all of you know that we have been what generally are called lovers, a singularly inadequate term for our relationship, for almost 29 years." Plouse passed away in 1988 from complications of AIDS. Turnbull held a funeral for Plouse and himself. He placed a casket beside Joseph's that held his spirit. The tombstone read as if both men died on that day. After Joseph's death, Turnbull turned his attention to fighting the death penalty and to becoming a Buddhist monk. He took the name of Lobsang Rigdal once he was ordained. Turnbull said of his life in 1993, "I want to be free of all my attachments so I can truly be free to help others. That means that no less than self-perfection. I will be a good monk, I promise." He passed away in Virginia in 1994 from complications of AIDS. Most of his life was dedicated to helping the African population, mainly the Mbuti. The Mbuti live in the Uturi Forest region in Africa. They are thought to be one of the first indigenous groups in the Congo region. They are better known as the Pygmies because of their short stature. They stand less than 4.5 feet tall. Unmistakable features are their height. Legs are short in comparison to the length of their bodies. They are strong and powerful, very muscular, splay-backed, and they have very round heads, wide-set eyes, and flat noses that almost match the broadness of their mouth. It is believed they lost most of their native language, but some argue this point. Even with the loss of their language, the Mbuti retain their own intonation, which separates the language almost into a language of their own and almost incomprehensible to non-Mbuti. The Mbuti are hunter-gatherers, and they live in small bands usually containing less than 75 people. There are 4 distinct groups, the Efe, Sue, Ake, and Mbuti. Turnbull lived with the Mbuti tribe for 3 years of his life. During this time, he recorded his stay to help shed light on the misunderstood tribe. At the time, Edward Tyson, an English anatomist, had published his study on the pygmy anatomy. He carried what he felt was a pygmy skeleton with him throughout his life to prove of his findings. He said the anatomy of a pygmy compared with that of a monkey, an ape, and a man. His opinion that stated the pygmies was not human is correct when you look at the skeleton in which he formed his opinion. That skeleton was most certainly not human. Instead, it was a chimpanzee skeleton. These findings, along with many other inaccurate ones, spurred Turnbull to report accurate reports on the Mbuti. In the book The Forest People, Turnbull tells his viewers, from his vantage point, what he saw while staying with them. He tells in great extravagance the lifestyle and cultural ways of the Mbuti.